Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm excited to be revealing one of the awesome new stamp sets in Colorado Craft Company's Lovely Legs series. This stamp set is called Chillin and Grillin and it is perfect for Father's Day. So I took out that large image from the set and I put it in my Misti Tool, and I'm stamping that onto some Canson watercolor paper using antique linen distress ink. I'm going to be attempting a no-line watercoloring look, and whenever I do that, I like to stamp with the antique linen distress ink, not only because it's really light, but also because it's distress ink, it does activate with water, so as I'm painting, the lines will slowly disappear a little bit. I taped my paper down to a hard board and I pulled out my watercolor set. I'm going to be using Prima watercolors today, and this is the Classics collection. This is actually the first time that I've ever used Prima watercolors, and I really enjoyed them. Right here you can see me working on mixing up my first color. I'm going to be painting all of the skin first, and I don't actually have a skin tone color in this palette, but that's okay because I find it better to mix your own anyways. Now, in order to get that skin tone color that I'm using, I mixed together the colors yellow, red, and a very tiny bit of blue. And I just kept mixing those colors until I got a color I was happy with. And while I was mixing them, I would test them on a piece of scrap watercolor paper. This is so I know what they look like on paper, because they don't actually look the same on paper as they do in the palette. You'll also notice that I have 2 cups of water. I like to always use 2 cups of water when I'm doing watercoloring. I can keep 1 cup really clean, and the other one is the one that gets really dirty. And I find that this is just a really good way to not contaminate your new colors with colors that you were previously using. So here's how it works. You dip your paintbrush in the clean water cup and get your paint. And when you're done with that color, you clean the brush off in your dirty water cup, and then you dry it off on a paper towel, and then you start over and go into your clean water again. And this just helps give you an extra layer of protection against contaminating the colors. It's definitely not something that you have to do when you watercolor, but it is a good idea if you want to be totally sure that your colors are not mixing together when you don't want them to mix together. As for the paintbrush that I'm using, this is a Royal Langnickel Zen watercolor brush, and this is a size 2. I really like the Royal Langnickel Zen watercolor brushes because I find that they're a decent quality and they don't break the bank. They definitely aren't the highest quality watercolor brushes that you can find, but those high quality brushes can really be pretty pricey. And for me, that's just not in the budget. And these ones actually work really well for my purposes. So like I said, I'm using the number 2 watercolor brush size, which is the perfect size for this image because it has lots of tiny details. And you'll see here that every now and then I actually had to reference the package so I could see those tiny details a little bit better, so I knew what I'm painting, because the antique linen distress ink is a little bit too light to see sometimes. I think that these stamp sets from Colorado Craft Company are really great for those times when you just want to sit down for a while and paint or color, because they have some really nice detailed images that are great for those 2 coloring mediums. I find that whenever I'm designing a card with one of their stamp sets, I'm always reaching for watercolors or colored pencils. I do think that these images can seem a little bit intimidating because of all of that detail, especially if you're not confident with coloring or watercoloring. Personally, I'm actually not very confident with my watercoloring skills, but I really enjoy watercoloring. So when I saw this stamp set, I knew that I wanted to watercolor it, but I was also pretty nervous because I wasn't sure if I could do it well. But I decided to give it a shot, and I just took my time with it, and I enjoyed the process. I find that it's a good idea when you're watercoloring to take your time with it and to start with light colors and slowly build up the colors into those deeper, darker colors. Now, I do have this video sped up quite a bit, but when I actually did this, I think it took me at least an hour and a half to paint this, so I really did take my time with it. And whenever I started on a new area of color, I would start with a really, really light wash of the color first, and I'd let it dry, and then I'd go back over it with more color to deepen up the colors. And I'd keep doing this until I was happy with the way the area looked. Another really nice thing to remember about watercoloring, especially if you're not confident in it, is that watercoloring is very forgiving. Especially when it comes to the really, really tiny details. Like on this particular image, inside the grill, there's something cooking. And when I was painting that, it's like, I can't really paint these and have you tell that it's chicken and steak or whatever is in there. So I just kind of did little dabs of color, and it's okay to be a little bit more stylistic like that because watercoloring is pretty forgiving in that area. It actually kind of looks a little bit better sometimes when you have less details. For me, that's something that I always have to keep in mind because I'm one that wants to add all of the little details. So sometimes I have to really tell myself that you don't need all of the little details, and sometimes it's better when you don't. All right, so now that the painting is done, I let it dry, and then I came in with my Prismacolor pencils and I just added some details here and there where I wanted it to be a little bit more precise. Now, part of me does wish that I had just skipped this step and left it how it was after I finished painting, because like I was saying before, sometimes with watercoloring, it's better to have less precise details, but I did this step and I do still like it, so what's done is done. While I'm working on the coloring here, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you guys about a giveaway that I'm having over on my blog. Colorado Craft Company was kind enough to send me 3 of the brand new stamp sets from their Lovely Legs series that I could give away to one of my subscribers. Now, if you're interested in winning all 3 of those stamp sets, head over to my blog to the blog post that goes with this video, and I'll have information on there about how you can enter to win those stamp sets. And I'll have a link to that blog post in the description below this video. All right, so back to the coloring. Once I finished with the colored pencils, I took my white gel pen and I added some highlights. I added quite a few highlights to the grill because I want it to look like it's metal. I then took out my watercolor set again and I added some of the white paint to the smoke that's coming out of the grill. When I first added this paint, I added it on a little bit too thick and I didn't like the way that it looked. So in order to fix it, I went over the area with clean water and then I dabbed it with a paper towel. And this pulls up most of that paint, and I really liked the way that it looked after I did that. After that, the painting is all done and I cut down that paper using my Tonic Trimmer. I used the Hero Arts nested rectangle die set, and I cut this frame out of some black cardstock. This is Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock, and I glued that to my watercolor panel with some Gina K Designs Connect glue. Next, I took an A2 size panel of Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock and I taped it to my work area, and then I taped down the diagonal stripe stencil from Simon Says Stamp over the top of that, and I blended over it with Distress Oxide ink in the color Black Soot, and that gives me a really subtle pattern on this background. I adhered that panel onto an A2 size card base with my ATG gun, and then I popped up my watercolor panel using some foam tape in the center of the card. I decided that I didn't want to add a sentiment to the front of this card, so I instead stamped one on the inside, and I stamped that with Gina K Designs Jet Black Amalgam ink. And here's a closer look at the finished card. I really love that sentiment which I stamped on the inside. It says, "Dad, you're flippin' awesome," which I think really goes well with this card. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this card design featuring that stamp set from Colorado Craft Company's brand new release. All of the supplies that I used for today's card can be found in the description down below. If you enjoyed watching today and you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I do new videos every single week, and I'm going to be back with another one really soon. Again, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.